Jason's got movies, comics, even books. One could say novelization to kind of expand on what the movie did in their own way. But for confusion purposes, I purposely made these separate videos. Today I'm going to be focusing on the novel version of Jason. I mean, he's technically the same Jason, but just for confusion's sake, people like to differentiate between comics, novel, and movies for the sake of canon and not canon. I thought this would be an appropriate way to do it as well. But just to set a few things straight, he's very similar to the comics and the canon as well. So don't be surprised if you see similar feats along with some extra stuff in novels. In the novel, they kind of talk about his lore. He had a premature birth. On one Friday the 13th, he was an unusually large infant with striking pronounced features that gave him almost an adult expression, and there was something ominous about him that made others get unease, except for his mother, of course. You guys know the story. He had some defects, which is probably why his labor was unnaturally short, as if the child within her were trying to claw its way out of her womb. He was unusual even at birth, to the point where when the doctor slapped him as a kid to make him cry or whatever, Jason didn't make a sound. He was one of them children that you never saw smile. He was just like, he was built to be a horror movie character. It's the same lore y'all already know. Drowning in a lake, came back as a powerful being, could do all types of different things. I mean, he's a horror movie type character, so even novelization talk about his weirdness when it comes to the different abilities he can do. Have you ever had this weird suspicion that Jason gets stronger as time goes by? The novels pretty much confirm it, especially for sure. It's talk about each time the tortured soul of Jason was resurrected from limbo it had fled to, it came back stronger, meaner. And just in case you're wondering, the newer movie or newer book comes out, it seems like he's getting stronger. That's probably why. Novels like this explain his regeneration, saying his flesh was trying to regenerate and heal itself. It's already proven in the novels he does have supernatural regeneration, basically. Novelization explains he was just different from everybody else. He was always healthy, while the slight injuries of childhood, he had always healed so quickly, to the point where he's never broken any bones. Nobody could notice that his body had a supernatural way of repairing itself, and the mama never questioned it either. When they was analyzing Jason's physiology in the far future, they was saying it wasn't organic and it wasn't inorganic, nor was it a mixture of the two. It was as if someone had constructed a representation of a cell made out of artificial materials, exactly to scale, and despite the absence of any living components, the cell had somehow come alive, dividing in standard cell fashion to produce this black ooze, except it wasn't alive. It behaved as if it was, but it wasn't. I think this is their way of saying his physiology is like alien, like it's really not normal. It's pretty much explained that Jason's consciousness is not confined to a single specialized area. Consciousness, along with memory, emotions, and intent, ran through his entire body like an electric current. There's no central port of vulnerability. Yeah, he has weird physiology. It was even stated here that he can regenerate a whole new eye, basically, saying he could have gouged out the eye and it would have grown back in a way anyway. He went through the similar evolutions like the comics and movies, like becoming a cyborg. You guys already know the deal. Going through a lot of the similar stuff. Don't be surprised if you see a lot of familiar stuff from the comics and movies. You know what I mean? There was even a copycat Jason. Yeah. But how strong are we talking? Starting it all off with a bang, Friday the 13th Part 3, the novelization. It's actually confirmed in novelization that when it comes to lifting certain things that weigh over hundreds of pounds, he can lift up things like stacks of hay bales that weigh hundreds of pounds, and he can throw them effortlessly. When they're talking about hay bales, this is the type of stuff they're talking about. This is one of those things where they obviously vary in weight, so it's kind of hard to get an understanding of how heavy this stuff is that Jason can easily throw. We just know it is at least 100 pounds at least, right? Because they stated in the novel. If you do a simple Google search, they say smaller ones can weigh even 400 to 600 pounds. As they go up to medium, they can be 700 to 900, or even up to maybe 1,700 pounds. So at the bare minimum, one could say he lifted over 100. Another low ball bare minimum could be at least 400 pounds. You know, being able to lift 100 or close to 500 pounds is definitely believable for a supernatural horror movie slasher type character. It's definitely nowhere near his limit, of course. That's like a benchmark. Even when he's fighting other supernatural beings in these novels, Freddy vs. Jason, novels confirm that he's strong enough to hold on to the scooter with one arm, even if you're trying to take off, trying to force the bike forward, but it was going nowhere, held by Jason. This kind of gives you a real understanding of his true strength. Because you know how he was fighting Freddy and this big old boiler was on top of him. In the movie version, the novelization actually give us a number. They said it weighed over 10 tons here, like literally the novelization, so we can kind of get an idea. Meaning Jason might actually have the strength to actually lift up an entire T-Rex with his super strength. 10 tons, or one could say 20,000 pounds. Like, you know the stuff that you see on cruise ships, like them anchors of a big ship like this? Look how they look compared to humans. One can say these thick structures he would be able to lift if we take what that novelization says as accurate. And then the novelization actually said over 10 tons. So yeah, he's superhumanly strong. With all this strength, so when you see him do absurd stuff like this, Like literally having the super strength to punch heads off. When you see that type of stuff in movies, novelization kind of confirmed, yeah, that's why he can do stuff like this, because the novelization they say he can lift at least 10 tons. And then when he was fighting Freddy in his different dimension, parallel dimension, the dream world, it's no wonder when he's got this kind of super strength to be able to lift heavy stuff up, of course his punches are going to be hard, right? Like the same feats we see him do in the movies, this is pretty much a part of his lore too, because they bring it up in novelization, feats like this, doing this to the door with his punches. It was explained in the novelization lore, giving more info about this same feat, talking about it was 120 pounds of reinforced steel he punched through with his bare hands. Similar to the movies, there's implications that in novelization, this feat is mimicked. This novel explains it in more clarity. Yeah, he pretty much mimicked the same feat in novelization, punching through steel doors. Yeah, steel doors, he can just definitely punch down with ease. Yeah, he can definitely do this to brick walls with his punches. I mean, it's inevitable, right? Windows that are apparently unbreakable and soundproof glass, we know he can break through. I mean, I already mentioned plenty of his durability earlier, but here's some more lore on his physiology about how much he can withstand. It kind of matches up with how hard he can hit and stuff. And his super strength, you got to have a good body for all this strength. Beings that can hit so hard that it would normally liquefy internal organs. It was even stated something weird about this guy's torso. It's like punching a sack stuffed with potatoes and bones. He should have gone down with a rupture and blood coming out of his mouth, or at least holes in his mask where his mouth would be. But he barely took a step back, standing like he was no more than a fly bashing itself against him. So even super strong hits aren't guaranteed if they're not strong enough. I mean, he's getting hit by beings that exceed all previous notions of what's humanly possible, technically. And yeah, just because you're superhuman doesn't necessarily mean you're on his level. I brought this up earlier, but similar to comics and movies, you know, the novel has their Cyborg Jason, Jason X, Uber Jason, where everything I've already showed you, he can do better, lifting over 10 tons, all that stuff this version can do, but even to a higher degree, if that makes sense, along with extra perks. Don't mind him. You can tell he's strong when he can casually jump 80 feet in the air. I mean, like I said, standard Jason stuff, breaking ribs, squeezing liver, piercing people's body with his strikes. He's that strong. You know, ripping arms off, his fingers pushed through technology's most advanced materials, making fingers and toe holds. Rammed into a space shuttle to dent it, but the force of his body to the shuttle did something else. It sent the shuttle tumbling sideways on top of itself, rolling over and over. These 12-foot shuttles, these things ain't small, he sent flying or sideways. It doesn't stop there, because apparently his punches can shake entire space stations. They even go as far as saying sending shockwaves throughout the room, and likely the entire station, shuddered from the stress. If his strikes or whatever can make big structures like this tremble from just his output of his shocks, creating shockwaves, it's stuff like this that makes me think he can definitely tremble smaller buildings, because we know different buildings have different sizes and such. He's definitely shown evidence that where he can tremble an entire house-sized structure if he can create shockwaves with just his raw attacks. Easily his most ridiculous durability feat of all time, surviving an enormous explosion that made the ground quake to where other people almost lost their balance from the quake. It was even stated that the silver flame from the explosion, of course, might have reached as high as the space station because it shot up in the atmosphere of the planet and ascend further out into space. And they talk about the metallic mass, that's Jason, is the one that was in the middle of all that BS. Landing in a huge crater, one that stretched for miles and ran at least a half-mile deep. That explosion that he was next to apparently caused a storm. They mention here the silver metal. They're talking about Uber Jason. The way all this madness is described, it sounds like a nuclear type of explosion. An explosion that can pierce the atmosphere or reach a space station, right? Nuclear explosions are powerful, but when have you ever heard of a nuclear explosion actually reaching the top of the stratosphere or something? This kind of stuff makes you wonder, what kind of explosion did Jason have to withstand being in the middle of and all? City-shattering stuff he can survive, apparently. This is probably partly due to his regeneration. It's hard to completely incinerate him into nothing. Having some resistance to heat, being Uber Jason, you know, all that stuff plays a hand. I mean, the nanites that are in him are pretty smart. They can literally hide the fact that they're actually helping him via nanites. It's like they adapt. They have a special kind of change in response to this regenerative activity. It's even stated here that the nanites help him be able to adapt. On a subcellular level, I hardly ever mention their speed, but yeah, by the way, they are indeed superhumanly fast. Apparently crush somebody's head in a nanosecond, which is a billionth of a second. His combat speed implies he can stab you too fast for you to be able to perceive. But yeah, he can do a whole bunch of cyborg stuff. You get the idea. I think we all can agree that this is not his most iconic, but rather this is. But I hope you guys found this video entertaining. You gotta respect his strength no matter how you slice it. Novels, comics, even the movies, they're all similar when it comes to feats. There's even feats that are in comics, movies, and novels. So it's basically the same thing, but I thought it would be better for confusion purposes to separate them. You know what I'm saying? If there's feats missing in this video, it's probably because I've already got those feats in my other previous videos about Jason. You know, you get the idea. He's scary, he's strong, run from him. And he's dang near impossible to kill because of regeneration. I mean, his body be getting injured, but when you can heal almost dang near instantly, what's the point of even hurting him? But no matter how you slice it, you gotta respect them. But before I get going, everybody, I gotta say a quick thanks to the donators. It helps out a lot. Respect, Jason. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.